activists. For these people, it's not about creating safer schools. It's about creating
That it retains journalistic integrity after baselessly accusing our president of inciting civil war. Yes, some people might try to tell you that this is a journalist. They might even scream journalist, journalist, journalist over and over again. They might put journalist in all caps. But this is a lemon. Its network colluded with a Democratic presidential candidate. Its colleague gave debate questions to Hillary Clinton. Don't be fooled. This is not a journalist. This is a lemon. A bitter lemon.
appease and passive, unassuming minorities by collectively pushing a rhetoric that the NRA is a racist hate organization who at best doesn't care about minority gun owners and at worst hates them. Yet this is the same media and political elites who in one breath say, don't join the NRA, they're racist, they don't care about minority gun owners. And then in another breath, push gun control laws that disproportionately affect the ability of minorities to own guns. Then when the NRA steps in to contest these gun laws, they say, oh, the NRA wants to arm thugs and drug dealers in the inner city. Their agenda has nothing to do with saving lives. It's about undermining the only organization powerful enough to stop them from accomplishing their goal of slowly eradicating the Second Amendment.
Second Amendment in the U.S. Constitution is very personal for me. When the people came to the streets and demonstrated against the regime, demanding their own rights, they get cracked on by the violence of the government. The people get tortured, executed, assassinated, hanging the people in the streets. These things I saw with my eyes. That's part of my experience. Just imagine if you get successful, you remove your Second Amendment from your Constitution completely. But who knows, in 20 years, 25 years, maybe situation will change. But any single person should have a right to defend themselves and defend their families.
We are the press who's under attack.
The president is like a child. Certain people shouldn't have guns. But you are basically participating in the bigotry.
How stupid do you think we are?
Bless your heart.
We remain steadfast in our commitment to individual freedom and empowering law-abiding Americans to make their own decisions about the safety and security of themselves and their families. And we are absolutely determined to pass national right to carry reciprocity. We have repeatedly offered real solutions that are proven to work. Put trained armed security in every school. Fix the broken mental health care system. Enforce the federal gun laws against every drug dealer and criminal gang member on the street, which stops them before they get to their next victim. Immediately prosecute dangerous people when they show up to buy a gun. And once and for all, heed our call that has gone unanswered for over 25 years. Force every state to submit the name of every last prohibited person into the background check system. These are real solutions that respect the individual freedom that is the birthright of every law-abiding American citizen.
You know, I don't even have to do this. You guys are doing a good enough job burning down your reputations all by yourselves.
Keep this area free right here. If you'll step over here behind the stand.
We will not let it happen. Our engaged, passionate, patriotic membership will squash the hate coming at us. We have to. A little less than 2 years ago, the NRA held its annual meetings in Louisville, Kentucky. 80,000 freedom-loving Americans came together to celebrate the Second Amendment and to celebrate this great country. And let me tell you something. During those 3 days, crime dramatically dropped across the city. There were only 16 reports of crime, compared to 102 just 2 weeks earlier. That's what happens when tens of thousands of law-abiding Americans come together to celebrate freedom. Everyone is safer. That is who the NRA is. But this week in Louisville, almost 2 years later, socialist vandals declared, quote, "Kill the NRA," graffitied onto a billboard next to the disturbing message, a tag for the radical group Resist 45. A group of underground violent socialists who use crime to oppose President Trump, to undermine freedom, and now to put targets on the backs of NRA members and gun owners. This, folks, is what we are up against. These people, these monsters, want to kill the NRA, and they want to do it so they can destroy America. Once you are disarmed, their violence will only escalate. You mark my words on that. We will not let that happen. But I need you, we need you, now more than ever. As freedom-loving Americans, as NRA members, we must come together to defeat this violent socialist wave. Because while celebrities, politicians, and the lying media continue to call NRA members terrorists, while they continue to push for the abolishment of the Second Amendment, they continue to tell each of us that we have blood on our hands. Why? Simply because we own guns. Simply because we exercise our constitutional right. I have not seen any of these Hollywood movie stars or politicians come out and denounce the sadistic message, "Kill the NRA," plastered on a billboard. Let me ask you this. If the message had read, "Kill Black Lives Matter," do you think Nancy Pelosi, Al Sharpton, radicals like Tamika Mallory, Linda Sarsour, and DeRay McKesson would be remaining silent right now? Of course not. Chris Matthews would have already accused every NRA member and Trump supporter of having paint on their hands. Instead of "Kill the NRA," if the billboard had read, "Kill the Women's March," do you think Chief Elizabeth Warren, Senators Chuck Schumer and Dianne Feinstein would be silent? Hell no. You better believe CNN, MSNBC, and the New York Times would have already given Olympic-style coverage to the billboard. Instead, there is nothing but silence on the issue. Why? Because their anti-gun rhetoric promotes these vandals to do what they do. But when it's the NRA, when it's rural America, when it's gun owners, when it's libertarians, conservatives, people who back our president, Americans who believe in the Constitution, saying they're going to kill us is perfectly acceptable. Well, not to me, because Joe Scarborough, Cory Booker, Joanne Reed, and Meryl Streep, they don't need to paint to write this message. They declare it every day in how they cover us, how they look down at us, how they paint us as terrorists and bigots, and people too stupid to make our own decisions. They don't just want to kill the NRA. They want to kill America. Folks, we don't just face radical, violent vandals. We are up against billionaires and the entire mainstream media, not to mention academia. So I'm asking you, get engaged. Even more than you already are, please. Taking back the truth, protecting the second, and fighting the left-wing madness will take a giant army of patriots. We have that army, and we can help defend freedom with your passion to take back the truth, to protect the Second Amendment, because don't forget, you are the very people they want to kill. You are the NRA, and we are NRA TV. And all of us together, committed to fighting the violence and lies with the fire of truth, we're not going anywhere. Our spirit can't be killed, and that, folks, is a guarantee.
Download the NRA app.
Disarm individuals. The far-right nutcases with guns who want to, shoot up the place.
Download the NRA app. Text NRA app to 313131. Take action. Defend your rights. Get the app. Text NRA app to 313131. The power to take action is one click away. Do it now.
Let me explain why you've never been less trusted, less credible, or less respected. For decades, you ignored calls from millions of gun owners to just tell the truth. All you had to do was just get the facts right about our guns and our freedom. But you never even pretended to listen. Instead, you weaponized the First Amendment against the Second. And now the whole country sees you for the mockery we've always known. Your claim to the truth is as legitimate as a thief's. If the fate of individual freedom had rested in your hands, America would have fallen long ago. But Americans put their trust somewhere else. And now, in that place, stands the most trusted defender of individual freedom in American history. We're the National Rifle Association of America, and we're freedom's safest place.
The shot across your proverbial bow. We're going to fisk the New York Times and find out just what deep rich means to this old gray hag, this untrustworthy, dishonest rag.
More than 50% of black people are either unemployed or underemployed.
Chaos on the streets of Paris.
The Mexican motels. Reportedly executed 21 Coptic missionaries. The number of dead would continue to go up.
Retains journalistic integrity after baselessly accusing our president of inciting civil war. Yes, some people might try to tell you that this is a journalist. They might even scream journalist, journalist, journalist over and over again. They might put journalist in all caps. But this is a lemon. Its network colluded with a Democratic presidential candidate. Its colleague gave debate questions to Hillary Clinton. Don't be fooled. This is not a journalist. This is a lemon. A bitter lemon.
I know you responded to this. I know you responded to retired Justice Stevens' New York Times editorial, where he was talking about a repeal of the Second Amendment. But what I found fascinating, and I'm sure you did as well, is he wasn't just going after the Second Amendment in his editorial. He was also going after the First Amendment, and he was simply saying that basically the NRA should be punished for being successful, and law-abiding gun owners should be punished for having the common sense to appreciate self-defense. Therefore, we should restrict speech as a way to tear apart the Second Amendment. Did you, I mean, I'm sure you picked up on that. What do you make of that? Because he's going after two natural rights at once here.
Well, you know, it's fascinating, Dana. All we've ever asked for is a little bit of intellectual honesty in this debate, and we surprisingly got a little bit out of Justice Stevens. We knew all along that he was a anti-Second Amendment, anti-individual freedom justice, so that wasn't really a surprise. What was a surprise was the collective yawn of the national news media. Can you imagine if Justice Souter had said, you know what, we need to repeal the 19th Amendment? Or if Sandra Day O'Connor came out and said, we need to repeal the First Amendment as it relates to the media. I mean, the fact that it was a collective yawn just shows that they didn't want to cover it. That's where they really are. This isn't about ARs or gun shows or universal background checks. This is about fundamentally changing this country, repealing this freedom, and also eliminating the one group that stands in the way of the left in implementing their progressive agenda, and that's the National Rifle Association of America.
How's everybody doing today in Dallas, Texas? We have a historic day in store. This is the first time in the history of the National Rifle Association, 147 years, that we've welcomed both the Vice President and the President to our annual meeting. It's going to be one to remember, so let's get started. To deliver the invocation, I'm proud to welcome the winner of 2 Purple Hearts, the Bronze Star, and the Silver Star. He not only fought for his country, but continues to fight for our freedoms each and every day. No one stands up for our brave servicemen and women more than this man. We're proud he serves on the NRA's board of directors, and we're privileged to have him here today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to introduce a genuine American hero, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all very much. My job is to keep us on schedule. Well, we got a lot of catching up to do, don't we? Would you bow your heads in prayer with me? Heavenly Father, Lord of lords, King of kings, we praise you and bow down before you and no other. Lord, we thank you for the bounty beyond measure and the resources too vast to quantify that you have bestowed upon our fruitful land. We are grateful to live among the freest, most prosperous, diverse, and generous population on earth. Lord, we ask that you deliver us from our enemies, for your forgiveness for those things that we have done and that which we failed to do when we strayed from your word. We beseech you for godly, enlightened leaders, your protection and guidance for our president, wisdom in selecting our legislators, and judges who temper justice with mercy. We beg you for pastors who know your word, teachers who know your name, and parents who sing your praises to their children. Lord, give us the strength and perseverance to guard all our God-given liberties enshrined in our Bill of Rights. Lord, protect those who serve the cause of freedom, and let us be worthy of the sacrifices of all who don a uniform and serve in peril on land, sea, and in the air. And Heavenly Father, when our day is done, let it be said of us that we were a people who fought the good fight, finished the race, and kept the faith. And I ask all this in the name of your Son, my Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Colonel. Ladies and gentlemen, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please welcome the officers of your NRA, President Pete Brownell, Vice President Richard Childress, and Second Vice President Carolyn Meadow.
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Awesome. That's awesome. To sing the Star-Spangled Banner, it is my privilege to welcome a woman who has brought up as a proud American in a blue-collar family, straight out of northern New Jersey. She's cut from the same cloth as many of you here in this audience today, the cloth that has made the United States of America the land of the free and the home of the brave. I present to you Miss Lacey Caroline.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting
Friends, it goes without saying that I'm happy to be outside of Washington, D.C., and it doesn't get much better than being in Texas. We're here to celebrate American freedom today. While we celebrate, we're also mindful that our country's been through some challenging times since we were last together. 3 months ago, we witnessed a horrible tragedy in Parkland, Florida. We all grieve for the families because they had to endure something no one ever should. And we resolved to work to find solutions to prevent it from happening again. But the question's this: what do those solutions look like? Do we pursue policies that have been tried and failed? Or do we focus on meaningful solutions to the underlying problems? Every parent in America wants to know our kids will be safe at school. Every parent. But there's not enough discussion, not enough urgency about solving the very real vulnerability our kids face every day. While too many people are focused on political agendas, the NRA is focused on real solutions. And the truth is, there's a lot we can do together as a country. Let's start by taking the "No Guns Allowed" stickers off the windows of our schools. That's not a school security plan. It's an invitation to tragedy. Look, there's no reason why we can't give our children the same level of protection that we give our government buildings, sports stadiums, and black tie Hollywood parties. So let's put trained armed security in every school and do it right now. While strengthening school security is critical, we must do more when it comes to addressing a violent culture in our country. Parents are concerned about an entertainment culture that devalues human life, degrades women, and celebrates killing. Not because mature adults can't handle it, but because our most vulnerable children can't, and every parent knows it. We're concerned about the overprescription of drugs and the threat it poses to our kids. We're gravely aware of the collapse of the family structure in America. We're concerned about the social isolation caused by technology, not because we're neophytes, but because deep down, everyone knows the trash our kids see on screens every day affects their behavior. Violence is a deeply complicated problem. Its roots lay all around us. Fixing it requires an open and honest exploration of our culture. But to be clear, it does not require taking away law-abiding people's freedom. But I haven't seen that exploration anywhere, except inside the homes and hearts of people like you. The entire national conversation, orchestrated by the broadcast and broadcast by the mainstream media, the town halls, the cable news streaming matches, the marches, the boycotts, all of it represents a carefully calibrated strategy to blame guns, gun owners, and the Second Amendment. No one's talking about the monsters responsible for these tragedies, and no one's talking about the culture that keeps producing them. Discussions of the real breakdowns in Broward County, the Sheriff Department's absolute failure, the FBI's failure, the school district's failure. They were carefully and intentionally removed from the national dialogue. Instead of a complex and nuanced discussion, one narrative and one narrative alone dominated. The NRA is an evil organization populated by millions of people like you who love your guns more than you love your kids. Let me say this for the benefit of the media here today. The National Rifle Association is the only organization in America that gets blamed for crimes our members don't commit. So to be clear, the 5 million law-abiding men and women of the NRA will not accept one shred of blame for the acts of madmen and the failures of government. You don't have a monopoly on caring, you don't have a monopoly on grieving, and you sure don't have a monopoly on solutions. Friends, this isn't just embarrassing internet chatter from anonymous people in their basements, and it's not just coming from cable TV blowhards, although there's been plenty from both. No, this story is being pushed by some of the most prominent members of our society. Just listen to this from the governor of Connecticut.
Dictionary, Merriam-Webster in particular, and you look up terrorism, it is the use of fear to coerce. And that's what terrorist organizations do. They use fear to get what they want. Well, that's my point, and quite frankly, that's what the NRA advocates. They advocate for more danger in your state, and they use fear to get their way.
A terrorist organization. Can you believe that was the highest office holder in the state of Connecticut? A man who claims to honestly represent his citizens no matter their political views. I have a feeling the men and women in this room who have put on a uniform and used a gun to actually fight and kill terrorists might disagree. Am I right? Yet this guy feels free to slander tens of millions of law-abiding people who've done nothing wrong. Now, we defend the governor's right to free speech every bit as much as we defend his right to protect himself. But what does calling the NRA a terrorist organization do to protect school children? Absolutely nothing. If he really wanted to protect those kids, you know what he'd do? He'd put the same armed protection he insists on for himself around every school in Connecticut. No, his goal's straight from the Michael Bloomberg and George Soros playbook. Say whatever it takes to stoke the flames of hatred against you, the honest, law-abiding NRA member. They can't beat us on the facts, but if they can shame us out of the fight, they'll win. What they really want is for you to be afraid to publicly associate with this organization. They don't want you to go to a Friends of NRA dinner. They don't want you wearing an NRA hat or putting an NRA sticker on your car or truck. Why? Because they can't implement their radical agenda with a strong and united NRA. That's why there's no despicable tactic that's too low or too cheap for these people. In the face of their bitter hatred, there's never been a more critical time for us to stand tall and, by God, to stand proud. Because NRA members are the best of the best. We're the most honest and law-abiding segment of American society. When you thank a soldier for his or her service, there's a good chance you're thanking an NRA member. Because we don't just believe in individual freedom and personal responsibility, we live it every single day. Absolutely. If you need a hand painting your house or cleaning up your neighborhood after a storm, your best bet's an NRA member. If you're stuck on the side of the road with a flat tire in the middle of the night, your best bet's an NRA member. And if a deranged monster comes into your church and starts murdering innocent people, your best bet is an NRA member like Stephen Williford. Please watch.
Shooting up the Baptist church. Every one of those shots to me represented one of my neighbors, one of my friends. And I ran as fast as I could. Immediately, he came out of the church shooting at me. He hit the truck in front of me, hit the car behind me, hit the house behind me. And I hit him. He had an AR-15, but so did I. And it's not the gun, it's the heart. It's a matter of the heart. I'm not the bravest man in the world or anything, but I was here. I was here, and I could do something. And I had to do something.
Stephen Williford is a devoted husband and father of 2 daughters. He just became a grandfather. He's a Christian. He's a plumber. He was a scoutmaster for 20 years. He volunteers with Christmas in April to help restore homes his neighbors can't afford to fix. If he's starting to sound familiar, it's because he's in every community in this country. He's your kid's Little League coach, their scoutmaster, their teacher. He's your neighbor, your friend. Let me be clear, Stephen Williford is a hero's hero. But don't believe the media. He is no anomaly. He's not 1 in a million. He's 1 of 5 million, one of us. And he's here today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Stephen Williford.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. I want to thank the NRA for inviting me here tonight. And I want to say a few things, and I hope they'll indulge me. Real quick, I would like to invite all the military, former and active members that are NRA members, please stand up. And please stay standing. Next, I want to ask all the first responders, all the fire department, all the EMTs, and all our police officers to please stand with our military. Next, I want to please ask all the NRA members that are citizens like myself that would answer the call, that would stand between a madman and his community. Please stand now with the rest of them. I want you guys to look around at each other and understand we are the NRA. We are the people that stand between the people that would do evil to our neighbors. I'm nothing special. Look at you guys. Every one of you would do what I did. And I love you all. Please be seated. On November 5th, the madman came into the church in Sutherland Springs. And I responded. I responded for what God told me to do. The Holy Spirit took care of me, watched over me. The heroes inside the church were numerous, and I can't name them all today because of time. But I want to say that each one of you would have done the same thing, and I thank you for that. Since November 5th, police officers have been coming up to me in fire department and EMTs and giving me challenge coins, and those mean so much to me. And the common theme when they gave me a challenge coin is they would call me a sheepdog. After a long thought about that, I found out that police department knows very much what a sheepdog is, because they are the sheepdogs, and I was told that a challenge coin and being a sheepdog is protecting your community, and there's 3 types of people. There's sheep, there's sheepdogs, and there's wolves. I'll accept being a sheepdog. I took care of my community on that day, and I would do it again, as each one of you have indicated you would. But being a sheepdog, we all need to understand that we can't do it alone, that there's always a shepherd that takes care of the sheepdog. And what the shepherd does is the shepherd makes sure that his sheepdog have food, water, and a warm place to sleep at night and rest. And a shepherd will take care of and brush the thorns and thistles out of the sheepdog's coat. And when too many wolves come down on one sheepdog, he sends other sheepdog to help, or steps in himself to protect his sheepdog. I'm here to tell you today that Jesus Christ is my shepherd. And what happened in Sutherland Springs was all him, and it's his glory. And thank you for my God and for his Son that paid the price for us. Thank you to God for protecting this great nation, and thank you for the NRA. Thank you very much. God bless.
Stephen, before you go, I want to present you with a couple of small tokens of our appreciation. I know you're a proud Texan, so the first is an original stock certificate from 1844. These were used at the time to draw settlers to the Republic of Texas. The second is, I understand you've been a proud NRA member for as long as you can remember. Well, you're never going to have to renew again because, Stephen, you're now the newest life member of the National Rifle Association. Congratulations. And thank you. We're going to need to do a little change to the podium, so bear with us just for 1 minute.
Down.
One of the great things that defines President Trump thus far has been the care he's taken to surround himself with not only great leaders, but true believers in freedom. How proud are you to have General Mad Dog Mattis watching over our nation's military? How about Nick, the United States of America, Mike Pence?
Well, hello, NRA. Thank you, Chris, for that kind introduction. Chris knows me well enough to know the introduction I prefer is a little bit shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order, and I'm a card-carrying member of the NRA. To Wayne LaPierre, to Governor Abbott, the distinguished members of Congress, to all my fellow Americans who've come from near and far, it is great to be back at the 147th annual meeting of the National Rifle Association. Thank you all. And I'm especially proud to be here with a good friend of mine, a great champion of our most cherished liberties, and a man I can tell you who can't wait to get out here, the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. You know, last year, President Trump spoke to this very gathering, the first president to do so in 34 years. And he told you then, in his words, that you have a true friend in the White House. And I'm here today as his vice president to tell you that you have two friends in the White House. President Donald Trump and I both stand without apology for the Second Amendment, and in this administration, the right of the people to keep and bear arms will not be infringed. You know, that right is truly one of our first and most important freedoms. Our founders won our independence with the power of their ideas and their muskets. Our pioneers won the West and expanded the frontiers of freedom with their daring, their courage, and their Springfields, Winchesters, and Colts. From generation to generation, our forebears have fought our nation's wars and defended our way of life with the skills they learned on the rifle range, or in a dove field, or in a deer stand, or at the knee of a father or grandfather back home. And in our own day, there is no greater champion of America's tradition of responsible gun ownership than you, the men and women of the National Rifle Association. The National Rifle Association is an organization forged in freedom. For nearly 150 years, the NRA has valiantly defended the Constitution and all our God-given liberties. In its early years, the NRA helped train our fellow citizens in gun safety and marksmanship, a tradition that continues even as this organization has gone on to become one of the principal defenders of our Second Amendment rights. Today, more than 5 million Americans are proud members of the NRA. And the work you do is essential to preserving our freedoms at every level of the American government. So give yourselves a round of applause for all you do for the ideals we cherish. And President Trump and I came here today mostly just to say thanks. Thank you for all you do to defend liberty. And thank you for electing a president and a Congress that are making America great again. Because of your support on Election Day and every day since, you can only describe this administration one way. It's been 15 months of promises made and promises kept, and we're just getting started. I mean, think about it. President Trump promised to rebuild our military and restore the arsenal of democracy. And just over 1 month ago, President Trump signed into law the largest investment in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan. Our president promised to enforce our laws and secure our borders. We've taken on sanctuary cities. We're fighting to end catch and release and close all the dangerous immigration loopholes in our laws. The president signed into law the biggest funding increase for border security in nearly a decade, and even ordered the National Guard to the southern border. Under this president's leadership, we've nearly doubled the arrests of vicious gang members in MS-13. And thanks to the leadership of President Trump, Congress approved funding for the first 100 miles of a border wall. And I'll make you a promise. When it comes to that big border wall, we're going to build it all. This president has also stood for all the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution. And I have to tell you, I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. To protect all our unalienable rights, President Trump promised to appoint strong conservatives to the federal courts at every level. And we've been busy at it. We actually, in the last year, set a record for the most Court of Appeals judges confirmed in a single year in American history, and that doesn't even count Justice Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court of the United States. And when it comes to security here at home, our president and I promise to stand with those who stand on the thin blue line of law enforcement, and so we have. As we all know, the men and women of law enforcement risk their lives every day to serve and protect our families, our neighbors, and our communities. And that's why, under President Donald Trump's leadership, we've made new resources available to law enforcement at every level. And we will continue to give all the heroes of law enforcement the training, tools, and the respect that they deserve as they protect our families in communities across this nation. You know, the American people will always remember the heroes of the Dallas Police Department who fell in the line of duty nearly 2 years ago in that attack that claimed the lives of 5 officers and left 9 others injured. Sadly, just last week, another brutal attack of violence struck this city, leaving 1 Dallas police officer dead and injuring another officer and a security guard. I know I speak for everyone here when I say that we are praying for the family of Officer Rogelio Santander and for the swift recovery of Scott Painter and Officer Crystal Almeida. They are heroes, and they are on our hearts and in our prayers. We live in challenging times, for as we all know, it hasn't just been our law enforcement community that's faced mindless violence of late. We live in a time where mass shootings have claimed hundreds of lives in places of work and worship and public settings, shocking the conscience of the nation. An ISIS-inspired attack on the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. An attack on a country music concert last year in Las Vegas, the worst mass shooting in modern history. And the recent attack on Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. These and too many other acts of violence shattered families and left our nation searching for answers. We mourn with those who mourn and grieve with those who grieve. But we also resolve to confront this menace with all our strength. And we are doing just that under the leadership of this president. And I promise you, under President Trump's leadership, we will not rest and we will not relent until we end this evil in our time. You know, in recent days, after these tragedies, America has seen President Trump's leadership on full display. He hosted a listening session at the White House with students and teachers and parents still grieving from the shooting in Parkland, Florida. We listened to their stories. We heard all sides of the debate. I'll never forget it. As the president said in his words, it's not enough to simply take actions that make us feel like we're making a difference. We must actually make that difference. And so we have. Just over 1 month ago, President Trump signed the Stop School Violence Act with the strong support of the parents of Sandy Hook, Promise, and the NRA. We're now providing more than $2 billion to help local governments ensure the security of their schools and the safety of our students. It represents the single largest investment in school safety in American history. President Trump also signed critical legislation to fix the national instant background check system to keep deadly weapons away from those who should never have them in the first place. And we're pursuing new resources to ensure that those struggling with serious mental illness have access to the treatment that they need. With the President's leadership, we've joined the NRA to call on states to give families and law enforcement the tools they need to stop mass shootings before they happen, because we know we can protect public safety and due process at the same time. And President Trump has urged leaders all across America to follow the example of states like Indiana and allow qualified school personnel on a voluntary basis to carry concealed weapons, because the quickest way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Now, this is real leadership, men and women. These are real results that will give law enforcement, families, and our schools new resources and tools to protect our students and ensure public safety. And I promise you, we will continue to bring American solutions to bear on this crisis. We will end this evil and protect our liberties at the same time. That's the American way. Now, the American people deserve to know about what we've done and what we're doing, because, quite frankly, most in the media won't talk about it. And we all know why. And most of the national media is working an agenda very different than most of us in this room. I mean, not only does the media too often ignore what our president is accomplishing, but they also won't tell the whole story about firearms in America. I mean, think about it. They focus on the tragedies and the heartbreak, and well, they should. But too often, many in the national media all but ignore what happens when well-trained, law-abiding gun owners save lives. It's the truth. The reality is, throughout American history, it's been proven time and time again, firearms in the hands of law-abiding citizens makes our communities more safe, not less. And let me tell you a few stories that you don't hear much about in the national media, but they prove the point. Like the off-duty Marine in Atlanta in 2009, who was attending a party that was overtaken by two would-be murderers. After the attackers separated the men and women, Sean Barner was able to get to the concealed firearm in his backpack. He killed one, ran off the other, preventing a terrible tragedy. Or how about the passerby outside a Philadelphia barbershop in 2015? He heard gunfire inside. He rushed in. He shot the attacker in the chest, and the Philadelphia police captain said, quote, "He saved a lot of people in there." And he did. Or how about the Uber driver in Chicago the same year who saw a man open fire on a crowd of people on a Friday night? He pulled out his concealed weapon, he engaged the shooter, he hit the attacker multiple times and saved the lives of people on that street that he'd never even met. Or the story from just down the road in Arlington, Texas, where exactly 1 year ago yesterday, a crazed man entered a bar, killed the manager, was prepared to kill countless others, when he was stopped cold by another patron, a fellow who took his wife to dinner that night and had a firearm at his side. I mean, the truth is, these are the stories we don't hear much about. Yet they're the stories that America most needs to hear. And so today I want to call on the national media. Start telling the whole story to the American people about firearms in this country. I mean, it's time the national media gave our many heroes as much attention as they give to our few villains. Because we should be a nation that recognizes the people who save lives much more than the people who take them. It's the greatest honor of my life to serve as your vice president. Truly is. And I thank you all. You know, the last 2 years have been filled with sights and sounds this small town boy could have never imagined that I'd live to see. But for Karen and me, our most inspiring moment came in the wake of one of our nation's darkest days, when we spent time with some extraordinary Americans, not far from here, in a place called Sutherland Springs, Texas. We all know the story. You just heard it again. Of a Sunday morning in November when a deranged man entered the sanctuary of the First Baptist Church and murdered 26 believers, including 9 children, and injured 20 more. A few days after the attack, the president sent us to that small town to pray and to comfort and to stand with those families. And it was our great honor. We grieved with those who grieved, and we prayed. But as the good book says, we did not grieve like those who have no hope, because the faith of those families and the heroes minted that day gave us hope. Walking through the library at the nearby high school, we spent time with each of the grieving families just before a memorial service. They were still shattered by the evil of that Sunday morning. We saw the pain of unspeakable loss in their eyes. But as I told Pastor Pomeroy just yesterday at the White House, Karen and I were so inspired by the faith in Christ that radiated out of every one of those families. But it wasn't just the faith of the families of the fallen. That day we also met for the first time the heroes of Sutherland Springs on a street corner just outside the church. As America would learn on that fateful morning, when one man heard the gunshots, he ran toward the danger, his firearm in hand. He shot the attacker twice, and with another man's help, they pursued that murderer in a high-speed chase. While the losses that day were indescribable, what was clear later is that it actually could have been worse. The murderer had ammunition and arms that would have claimed even more lives. But for the courage of an NRA instructor and the newest recipient of the Defender of Freedom Award, Stephen Williford. Stephen, it is an honor to share this stage with you today. The Second Amendment is a shield for the rights of every American, and it's a shield for the most vulnerable. It's the great equalizer that gives every American the power to defend themselves and their families against any evil in our midst. And for the sake of our freedom, for the safety of our people, for the security of our nation, President Donald Trump and I will always stand for the right to keep and bear arms. As I close, let me simply encourage you to remember that our freedom always needs defending. As my second favorite president, Ronald Reagan, once said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And make no mistake about it, men and women, this is a pivotal year in the life of our nation. And in this year, I want to challenge all of you, all the men and women of the National Rifle Association here and across the country, stay in the fight. Exercise all of your fundamental rights. Live out the citizenship in a way that's long made the NRA one of the most potent forces for good in the United States of America. And do it this year. Carry freedom forward. Support men and women in public office who support our liberties. And talk to your coworkers and neighbors and friends and family at worship and at work. Talk to them about the progress that we've made together and all that we can do in the days ahead. Tell our story. Tell what President Trump has meant to this nation in restoring our strength at home and abroad. Remind them that we cut their taxes so they can keep more of what they earn. Remind them that we're restoring American strength at home and abroad to protect their families and our freedom. Remind them that we're standing with law enforcement and all the God-given liberties enshrined in the Constitution. Just go out there and tell them. Tell them we got the government working for them, not the other way around. Go tell them that the forgotten men and women of America are forgotten no more. You just go tell them, and tell them this year. And if you're of a mind, there's one thing more I might urge you to do. In this time of too much division in these United States, too much anger, and even violence, I want to encourage you, if you're so inclined, to bow the head and bend the knee in the days ahead and pray for America. And when you pray, pray with confidence. Because I'll always believe that those words recorded millennia ago that Americans have clung to throughout our history are every bit as true today as they've ever been. In these divided times, that if His people, who are called by His name, will humble themselves and pray, He'll do like He's always done through the long and storied history of this land. He'll hear from heaven and He'll heal this land. This one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, I need to get out of your way because your next speaker is about ready to come out. But I want to thank you for the honor of addressing you. I leave here with renewed confidence, with the support of all the freedom-loving Americans gathered here and looking on across the country, with continued conservative leadership in the Congress of the United States, with President Donald Trump in the White House, and with God's help. We will make America prosperous again. We will make America safe again. And as he loves to say, we will make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
going to offer up a network like this.
In recent years, this country's gone to hell. And the crack's getting bigger on the side of that Liberty Bell. Obama and
It's almost hard to believe, but this November will mark the 2nd anniversary of Donald Trump's historic defeat of Hillary Clinton. If that's not a reason to celebrate, I don't know what is. Now, everyone always wants to grade the president. His first 100 days, his first year, his first State of the Union speech, his first Easter egg roll. It's all they want to talk about, day in, day out. Well, I guess I'll never have a job in the media because I can tell you everything you need to know in the next 30 seconds. You want to know how the president's doing? Just take a look at who's winning and who's losing. There's never been a worse time to be a terrorist than with Donald Trump as president. There's never been a worse time to be an MS-13 gang member. There's never been a worse time for overpaid celebrities and athletes to disrespect the flag and the heroes who died for it. There's never been a worse time to be a card-carrying member of the Washington Swamp, and there's sure Lord never been a worse time to be a member of the mainstream media. But you know what? There's never been a better time to be a law-abiding, gun-carrying, flag-waving, God-fearing, freedom-loving American patriot. Sounds like he's doing a pretty damn good job to me. He's our president. And to all our friends in the media, you better get used to it. Because we intend to keep him making America great again, not for another 2 years, but for another 6 years. Please welcome the 45th President of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
Thank you very much. We love you, Frank. We love you. Not bad. Thank you, folks. Thank you very much. A great honor to be here, and I want to thank Chris. So many people have done such an incredible job, and these are real patriots. They really are, and they don't get the kind of adulation, but really they do, and we know that. I want to thank Wayne LaPierre. I want to thank my friend, our great Vice President, Mike Pence, for his terrific remarks. My friend, our great Vice President, Mike Pence, for his terrific remarks. I also want to recognize our great Texas leaders. Do we love Texas? Do we love Texas? Governor Greg Abbott, my friend. Where's Greg? Governor Greg Abbott. And he's running, and I've already done it, but I will tell you, Greg, I fully endorse you. You are endorsed. He has done a great job. I'll tell you, you had your water just pouring down on top of you, just kept coming and coming. He kept calling and calling. We need more money, money, money. And you know what? We gave it to you. Fully endorsed. Attorney General Ken Paxton, tremendous guy. And by the way, Ken, you have my full endorsement, and Angela, your wife, has my full endorsement. She just had a big victory. Senator John Cornyn, been with me right from the beginning. John, thank you. Thank you, John. Full endorsement for this man, Ted Cruz. Where's Ted? Where's Ted? Thank you. Well, that was very rousing. That's a good sign. Congressman Pete Sessions and Congressman Mike Burgess, great friends. We're also joined by Pete Ricketts, Dana Loesch, Charlie Kirk, Diamond and Silk. Where are they? Where are they? They're so great. Mark Geist, Richard Hudson, Pete Brownell, and Leslie Rutledge. Finally, I want to thank all of you, the true American patriots of the NRA, who defend our rights, our liberty, and our great American flag. Thank you. Thank you very much. The people in this hall have never taken our freedom for granted, never. And you have never stopped fighting for our beloved Constitution. Incredible people. Thank you. You give your time, your energy, your vote, and your voice to stand strong for those sacred rights given to us by God, including the right to self-defense. And now, thanks to your activism and dedication, you have an administration fighting to protect your Second Amendment, and we will protect your Second Amendment. Your Second Amendment rights are under siege, but they will never, ever be under siege as long as I'm your president. All of us, thank you, thank you. All of us here today are united by the same timeless values. We believe that our liberty is a gift from our Creator and that no government can ever take it away. We believe in the rule of law. And we support the men and women of law enforcement. We have pride in our history and respect for our heritage. We put our hands on our hearts for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we all proudly stand for the national anthem. We proudly stand. What people, what great people. And this is your record crowd, you know, all-time record crowd. You do know that, so just remember, nice to set records. We love our country, and we believe our citizens deserve a government that shows them the same love and loyalty in return. For the last 15 months, that is exactly what we have been doing. We are all finally putting America first. And we are seeing the incredible results as a result of our massive tax cuts, and everybody is benefiting and everybody is happy. And the Democrats are very concerned. You watch how well we do in 18. You watch. You watch. Get out and vote. Don't be complacent. Don't be complacent. You know, history says that when you win the presidency, you get complacent. We all know the feeling. Do you know the feeling? Not too many. Like 90% of the time, you win the presidency, and for whatever reason, you lose the midterm. We can't let that happen. And the word is complacent. You know, I kept thinking to myself, why is that? I wonder why. Think about it. You win. You have this great win. Now you take a breath. You relax. All of a sudden, 2 years is up. They're fighting like hell, and you're complacent. We cannot get complacent. We have to win the midterms. Because since the election, we've created 3.2 million jobs, unthought of. If we would have said that 3 years ago during the campaign, people would have said, what a horrible exaggeration. That's so terrible. They wouldn't have believed it. 3.2 million. The unemployment rate, you saw that just today, just fell beneath 4% for the first time since the beginning of this century. You know, I heard it was about 19 years. I said, wait a minute. The beginning of the century sounds better. So I say, the beginning of the century. More beautiful. African American unemployment has reached another all-time in history record low in history. And by the way, Kanye West must have some power, because you probably saw I doubled my African American poll numbers. We went from 11 to 22 in 1 week. Thank you, Kanye. Thank you. When I saw the number, I said, there must be a mistake. How can that happen? Even the pollsters thought there must be a mistake. Now we've come a long way. You remember I'd come into big rooms, big audiences, and I'd say, what do you have to lose? Because the Democrats have always had that vote. I say, what do you have to lose? Horrible on crime, horrible on education, horrible on everything. I'd say, what do you have to lose? And they voted for me, and we won, but now the numbers are much higher than they ever were with African American, and we're happy. And the same thing with Hispanic American unemployment, which is also at the lowest level in history. Unemployment, lowest level in history. And women's unemployment, many women, is at the lowest level in almost 20 years. Think of that. So we have the best employment numbers we've virtually ever had. And yet, all we hear about is this phony Russia witch hunt. That's all we hear about. So, just when I'm walking on the stage, A highly respected judge in Virginia made statements. It says, Wall Street Journal, it says, judge questions Mueller's authority to prosecute Manafort. Now, Paul Manafort's a nice guy, but you know, he worked for me for a very short period of time, literally for, like, what, a couple of months? Little period of time. Then what happens? He worked for Ronald Reagan. He worked for Bob Dole. They worked, I think, as a firm for John McCain. They worked for others. Does anybody say that? No. But he's out there fighting. On fake news CNN, I think NBC may be more distorted and worse, but no, but on CNN, they have a headline. Judge in Manafort case says Mueller's aim is to hurt Trump. You believe that? This is what we're up. It's called The Witch Hunt. So I just said, give me that article. I want to read it. Just happened a few minutes before I walked on stage. A federal judge Friday questioned special counsel Robert Mueller's authority to bring tax and bank fraud charges unrelated. Nobody knows that. Everyone thinks, oh, unrelated to the 2016 election against former Trump campaign manager, Chairman Paul Manafort, who was there for a short while. But he's a good person. He is. I really believe he's a good person. Judge T.S. Ellis, who is really something very special, I hear, from many standpoints. He's a respected person. Suggested the charges before the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia were just part of the Mueller team's designs to pressure Mr. Manafort into giving up information on President Donald Trump or others in the campaign. I've been saying that for a long time. It's a witch hunt. Then, none of that information has to do with information related to the Russian government coordination and the campaign of Donald Trump. It doesn't have anything to do. It's from years before. Then, how does this have anything to do with the campaign, the judge asked. Let me tell you, folks, we're all fighting battles, but I love fighting these battles. It's really a disgrace. What's happening to our country is a disgrace. Thank you. Thank you. Can you imagine if we ever called for a rally in Washington, D.C.? There wouldn't be enough room. There wouldn't be enough room. We have a lot of love going on. You know, people don't realize we have great love going on in this country. Great love. It's right here. We have, and by the way, you just saw the recent poll. It came out, the Rasmussen, 51 or 52. It's the highest level I've ever been at. How does that happen when you only get bad publicity? How does that happen? That's because people realize that a lot of what you read and a lot of what you see on television is fake. They realize it. The people are smart. The people are smart. So you have a battle also. You have a battle to keep your rights, and we're going to keep those rights. You're going to be so happy. You have to say, you weren't sure that Trump was going to win, but you all went out there. You all went out there and you voted. You voted. And there were times they'd put up that Trump, Pence. There were times you'd say, geez, a week before they were saying, I remember they came out with a lot of phony polls. You know what that's called? Suppression. They convince you that you're wasting your time. Why should you vote? Go to a movie instead, come home, watch the results. Very few of the people in this room and in this country did that. And we really had a big night. Remember they said, there's no way, Electoral College, there's no way to 270 for me. There is no way to 270. And they were right. But 306 was okay, right? sick. So we had a great time, and I think we're doing better now than ever before. I think we're more popular now from the standpoint, now we've produced. You know, when I was running, I said we're going to give you tax cuts. And by the way, we are decimating Obamacare. We got a bad vote the evening. We got a bad vote the evening that we were going to terminate Obamacare. We got a bad vote. You know about that, right? That was not a nice thing. That was an unexpected vote. But if you look at the massive tax cut bill, we also got rid of the individual mandate, which is the worst part of Obamacare, right? I don't know if the people in Texas are going to like this, but we also got Anwar in Alaska, so I don't know if you're going to like a little competition. But you know what it is? It's called energy for this country. It's called energy. That we like. So, Ted, I think they're happy with that, I think, right? So, we've delivered. And when we were running, I would say, we're going to this, we're going to that, we're going to that. A certain person that's not a very fair person in the media said, I have to say, Trump has actually delivered more than he promised, which is probably the first time people have ever heard that statement. We've actually delivered more than we promised. And let me just tell you this, we're really doing well with North Korea. We're really doing well. Okay? Right? We're doing real well. Remember they said, oh, it's going to be terrible. They were actually saying 3 months ago, when the rhetoric was rather sharp. Do we agree? I won't use the rhetoric now. Now I'm trying to calm it down a little bit. So I'm not going to use the rhetoric. But let's put it, he goes to use it. I know you come from Texas, whoever the hell you are. Look, for years they've had this problem. And everybody has said sort of, oh, don't talk. Please don't talk. The last administration had a policy of silence. Don't talk. You may make them and him angry. Don't talk. If a horrible statement is made about the United States, don't say anything. We have no comment. Please, please. Oh, my God. Same thing with Iran. Remember? We're signing that horrible deal, and they're marching in the streets saying death to America. I said, who signs a deal when they're marching saying death to America? Who marches? They're saying death to America, and we have the former administration as represented by John Kerry. Not the best negotiator we've ever seen. He never walked away from the table, except to be in that bicycle race where he fell and broke his leg. That's it. That was the only time. I said, don't tell him you broke your leg. Just stay inside. Say you don't want to negotiate. You'll make a much better deal. But he broke his leg. And I learned from that. At 73 years old, you never go into a bicycle race, okay? Just don't. You just don't do that. I'm not 73, he was, okay? But I'll be there. But we have great things going on. And, you know, with respect to North Korea, remember how strong it was? And they were saying, this is going to be nuclear war. We're going to have it. No. You know what gets you nuclear war? Weakness gets you nuclear war. Being weak gets you nuclear war. That's what gets you nuclear war. So let's talk about guns, shall we? Paris, France, has the toughest gun laws in the world. The president just left Washington, Emmanuel, great guy. Nobody has guns in Paris, nobody. And we all remember more than 130 people, plus tremendous numbers of people that were horribly, horribly wounded. You notice nobody ever talks about them. They talk about the people that died, but they never mention that 250 people had horrible, horrible wounds. I mean, they never mention that. But they died in a restaurant and various other close proximity places. They were brutally killed by a small group of terrorists that had guns. They took their time and gunned them down one by one. Boom, come over here. Boom, come over here. Boom. If you were in those rooms, one of those people and the survivors said it just lasted forever. But if one employee or just one patron had a gun, or if one person in this room had been there with a gun aimed at the opposite direction, the terrorists would have fled or been shot. And it would have been a whole different story. I mean, right? Right? We all know what's going on in Chicago. But Chicago has the toughest gun laws in our country. They're so tough. But you know what's happening? It seems that if we're going to outlaw guns, like so many people want to do, Democrats, you better get out and vote. Then we will get out, and you know what I'm going to say. We are going to have to outlaw immediately all vans and all trucks, which are now the new form of death for the maniac terrorists, right? They take a truck and they run over 8 people and wound 16, like what happened in New York and what just happened. It's happening all over. So let's ban immediately all trucks, all vans, maybe all cars. How about cars? Let's not sell any more cars. I love you too. Thank you. I recently read a story that in London, which has unbelievably tough gun laws, a once very prestigious hospital, right in the middle, is like a war zone for horrible stabbing wounds. Yes, that's right. They don't have guns. They have knives. And instead, there's blood all over the floors of this hospital. They say it's as bad as a military war zone hospital. Knives, knives, knives. London hasn't been used to that. They're getting used to it. It's pretty tough. We're here today because we recognize a simple fact. The one thing that has always stood between the American people and the elimination of our Second Amendment rights has been conservatives in Congress willing to fight for those rights. And we're fighting. We're fighting. We're fighting to defend our freedom. We need the people in Washington to support our freedom, to support our candidates, to support Ted, to support the people that have to raise their hand. You know, they say we have a majority. We have what? A majority of one person? That's not really a majority. We need Republicans to do it right, to get the kind of things we want. We've got to get Republicans elected. We've got to do great in 2018. Those midterms, we have to do good. We need judges who will enforce our laws, protect our sovereignty, and uphold our American way of life. The Constitution can't be changed by judges, bureaucrats, or the United Nations. That is why we are appointing federal judges who will interpret the law as written. In my first year, I nominated, and the Senate confirmed, more circuit judges than any new administration by far in history, and we will have the all-time record very soon. President Obama was very nice to us because he left us a lot of judges tonight. I said, that's a lot of judges. Like almost 140. That's a lot of judges. I was very surprised. I was very happy. And we put an incredible new justice on the Supreme Court, Judge Neil Gorsuch. Yet virtually every single Democrat in the Senate opposed Neil Gorsuch, just like they have consistently opposed judges who will protect your basic freedoms. And by the way they're slow-walking people that are supposed to be working for us in government. If you look at what they're doing, in the history of this country, there has never been anything like what the Democrats are doing on great people who gave up their jobs and their lives to take a job as an ambassador or people working for our government, and they can't get approved because every single one of them is being slow-walked by the Democrats, and it's never happened before. And you know what? I hope we have long memories, but I hope we don't have to worry about it because we're going to be there a long time, so we won't have to worry about it. But what they're doing is disgraceful. What they are doing, Schumer and the group, what they are doing is disgraceful. What they're doing to the wall and immigration is disgraceful, and you just take a look at the border, okay? You take a look. Take a look at what's happening. My administration and conservatives in Congress were elected to uphold your rights, to rebuild our military, which we are doing a great job of rebuilding, to restore our prosperity, to secure our communities and defend our borders. We have the worst immigration laws anywhere in the world, but I'll tell you what, it's not easy for people to come in, I will tell you. It's not, but we have the worst laws. After years of defending the borders of other countries, we go into wars with other countries. We shouldn't be there. We go into wars to defend their borders. We don't defend our own borders. And we're going to start defending our country. We're going to start defending our borders. You've all seen on television, all over the papers, the illegal migrants pouring up through Mexico, flooding the border. Many from Central America, Honduras, all over the place, coming up by the thousands. We're stopping them at different fronts, but we don't have laws. We have laws that were written by people that truly could not love our country. Illegal immigration must end. Illegal immigration must end. We are going to have strong borders. I will tell you, we have maxed out every law. We are going to have truly strong, and we're going to take people into our country, but they're going to come in based on merit, not based on picking somebody out of a bin. We are not going to let our country be overwhelmed. And we're going to demand Congress secure the border in the upcoming CR. It's going to be very soon. It's going to be very soon. In recent months, Democratic lawmakers have voted against legislation to close deadly immigration loopholes, like catch and release. How about that one? We caught him. Oh, release him. Bye-bye. Welcome to America. Welcome to America. That's what we have. We're going to keep the violent criminals out. Senate Democrats like John Tester. You saw what happened there. What he did to one of the finest people in our country. What he did to the Admiral. What he did is a disgrace. John Tester. Bill Nelson and Bob Casey voted against Kate's Law, legislation named for Kate Steinle, who was gunned down by a 5-time deported illegal immigrant. And you saw what happened with that court case. Can you believe the result of that court case? Can you believe that? The same senators, along with nearly every other Democrat, also voted to protect something that's actually becoming very unpopular, sanctuary cities. Can you believe finally people are starting to get it? Democrats and liberals in Congress want to disarm law-abiding Americans. At the same time, they're releasing dangerous criminal aliens and savage gang members onto our streets. These countries send up their worst. Remember what my opening speech, I got criticized for it, remember? Well, guess what? They're not sending their finest, that I can tell you. We're getting some real beauties in here. But we're taking MS-13 horrible killer gang members, we're getting them out because our guys are much tougher than theirs. There is not even a little bit of a contest. And that's the only language they understand. That's the only language they understand. These are savage killers. My administration believes our cities should be safe havens for Americans, not sanctuaries for criminals. And we believe that violent gang members must be thrown out of our country immediately, not let to stay, to fester, and to get larger. We get them out, and we are taking them out by the thousands. And if we had the right laws, which we can have very quickly with cooperation, we wouldn't even have a problem. It'd be so much better, so much easier. We believe that politicians who put criminal aliens before American citizens should be voted out of office immediately. As we secure our borders, we're also supporting the heroes who fight crime, serve our citizens, and secure our streets. Our brave men and brave women in blue. We love them. In my administration, we have a simple policy. We will protect those who protect us. You saw what I did with the military equipment, the excess equipment that was sitting all over the country in warehouses, never to be used again. And other administrations, they just didn't want to give it to the police. They said, it's too much protection, it looks too strong, it looks like military. Guess what? It's now being distributed all over to our police forces. And it's better than they could ever buy. Can't buy stuff like that. Today, our love and prayers go out to the family of slain Dallas police officer, Rogelio Santander, who last week was murdered in the line of duty, very, very close to this arena. We ask God to help the others who were wounded, and they will recover, they will be better, they will be back. Send our love, so important. Thank you. And we mourn together with the entire Dallas Police Department. It's a great police department. A police force that has lost too many heroes, but has never lost its will to protect and to serve you. We're also taking very strong action to secure and protect our most valuable resource, our children. All of us here today are deeply committed to school safety. Nothing is more important than protecting innocent lives. And I will tell you, Wayne and Chris and all of the people at the NRA, we speak about it all the time. These are great people. These are great Americans. These people have great heart. They know what they're doing. Our entire nation was filled with shock and grief by the monstrous attack on a high school in Parkland, Florida. We mourn for the victims and their families. Gotten to know members of those families. These are incredible people. And our hearts break for every American who has suffered the horrors of a school shooting. In the aftermath of the terrible attack, I met with the survivors, the parents of school shooting victims at the White House. I was inspired, like all of you were, by their incredible courage. We agreed that it's not enough to simply take actions that make us feel like we're making a difference. We must ensure that we actually make a difference. And my administration has pursued an aggressive strategy on community safety. We're working to improve early warning systems so that when the police are called, when the community sees the red flags, which they saw in Parkland all over the place, there has never been a case where more red flags have been shown. Swift action is taken by the authorities. Law-abiding gun owners want to keep firearms out of the hands of those who pose a danger to themselves and to others. We all want that. We all want that. I recently signed legislation that includes more than $2 billion to improve school safety, including the funding for training and metal detectors and security and mental health. Mental health is a big one. They don't like to talk about mental health. Mental health, that was the #1 example in Park. That legislation also made vital improvements to our background check system, which everybody wants. Finally, all of us agree that we must harden certain schools. At the same time, the police have to be able to get into those schools if there's a problem. We want armed guards. We want to be able to get in. I saw some of the craziest plans that I've ever seen. You can spend a fortune on each school. You will spend so much. Nobody knows more about construction than I do. You will spend so much. You're going to make it so hard that you can't run a D8. You know what that is, right? Through the doors. Means a tractor. There's only one problem. If one of these maniacs get in, and it's so hard, you can't get in. So you have to be careful. We strongly believe in allowing highly trained teachers to carry concealed weapons. They're highly trained. And we want highly trained security guards. 98% of mass public shootings have occurred in places where guns are banned, just so you understand. Tragically, as we've seen, there's no sign more inviting to a mass killer than a sign that declares this school is a gun-free zone. Come in and take us. 98%. You know, they're cowards. You saw that in the recent case where he did all of his damage and then he sort of slinked out of the school. And the policeman outside caught him in a different community. That policeman did a good job. That policeman did a good job. Caught him in a different community. But they are cowards. When they know there's guns inside, they're not going in. We just don't understand that. We can't get that word out. But highly trained people. At the same time, there is no stronger deterrent for a sick individual than the knowledge that their attack will end their life and will end in total failure. When they know that, they're not going in. you're not going to have school attacks. We support the Second Amendment, not only because we believe in freedom, but also because we trust in everyday, talented, wonderful people. They love our students. And by the way, these teachers, they love their students. They love their students. They understand it. They love their students, and they're not going to let anybody hurt their students. But you have to give them a chance. In America, we trust the people to be wise and to be good. We trust them to take responsibility for themselves, their families, and their communities. And that is why in America we have always trusted the people to keep and bear arms. It is fitting that we gather today in the great state of Texas, a place that cherishes their right like no other. You know, before I left today, a couple of people came up to me, good political people. They said, you know, going to the NRA convention and speaking today, that'll be very controversial. It might not be popular. You know what I said? Bye-bye, got to get on the plane. Because we have to do the right thing. We have to do the right thing. This proud state would not exist if not for a handful of determined and defiant Texans who refused to surrender their rights nearly 2 centuries ago. Right? You know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. In 1835, soldiers from General Santa Anna's army marched into the little Texas town of Gonzales and ordered those settlers to surrender their small cannon they relied on to protect their lives and protect their homes. The Texans refused. You refused. You're tough. That's right. They were not about to give up their only means of self-defense. In response, Santa Anna's army returned with a large group of additional people. They had men all over the place. The army was big. This time they were met by dozens of Texans, settlers, soldiers, and ordinary citizens who had rushed to Gonzales to defend their rights and their freedom. As Santa Anna's men watched from a distance, those brave Texans raised a flag for all to see. And you know what it said. On the banner, they painted a cannon along with 4 words that echoed through the ages. And you know what it is? It said, "Come and take it. Come and take it." Like those early Texans, Americans will never surrender. Ever, ever, ever. We will never, ever surrender. We will never give up our freedom. Americans are born free. We will live free, and we will die free. So again, it is a great honor to be with you. Very special people. We truly appreciate your support. I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing it for you, but we're doing the right thing. We're doing the right thing together. I want to thank again all of our friends and patriots from the NRA. We will never fail, and we will always protect your Second Amendment. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you all. Thank you.
In recent years, this country's gone to hell, and the crack's getting bigger on the side of that Liberty Bell. Well, Clinton, Obama, and the Democratic crew sure did a number on me and you. It wasn't my vote, you can blame yourselves for that. But we got a chance to turn things around if you get your butt up off the ground and understand we're all gonna have to work. This big old country was built on sweat, and if we're gonna make it great again, you're gonna get wet. But the first things first, we all gotta vote for Trump. Vote for Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. And to hell with the rest, he'll get us over the hump. And down the road, we'll all go, and the wall will get built by Mexico. But first things first, we all gotta vote for Trump. He understands the working man, tells the truth that we can understand. If you don't like it, you can all just kiss our ass. Kiss our ass. He pays his own way, don't take no crap. Gonna bring back country, get rid of rap. And if nothing else, we can all thank Donald for that. Thank you, Donald. Vote for Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. To hell with the rest, he'll get us over the hump. And down the road, we'll all go, and the wall will get built by Mexico. But the first things first, we all gotta vote for Trump. Well, little Marco and Lion Ted, it's time to go home and crawl in bed. The campaign's over and the big fat ladies sing. And Hillary Clinton don't stand a chance with her preacher hair and her old man pants. Take Bill home, good God, he's getting old. Now let's vote for Trump.